When Overwatch was announced at BlizzCon 2014, almost immediately after, people were speculating about the pay model of Overwatch, and a lot of people were assuming it was going to be free to play. However, earlier in 2016, we found out that Overwatch would be a $40 initial payment to play the game. Whether or not this was the right decision by Blizzard will show in the future by judging player statistics and stats and growth of the game in general. But relative to a game like Renegade Line, which is still in development, it begs the question, should Renegade Line be a pay-to-play game? In Renegade Line's press kit, it is already confirmed that the game will be free to play at launch. Like I said, the game still is in development, so this is subject to change as needed by the developers of Renegade Line. But is free to play the best payment model, and should Renegade Line be a pay to play game? Alongside Overwatch, there are other games out there like Rocket League and Counter-Strike Global Offensive that are equally and more successful despite having this pay to play model. On the flip side, immensely successful games like League of Legends and Dota 2, being some of the most played games in the world, are very successful despite being free-to-play games. But which of these is the better pay model? The initial downside to having to pay for a game first before you're allowed to play is that you have to pay for it immediately, meaning that the potential is there for you to waste your money on a game that you might not even enjoy despite having paid for it already. And after that initial transaction, you might feel obliged to play the game just because you've spent money on it. A pay-to-play model could also have an effect on the community where people who wish to play the game simply can't because they either can't afford it at the time or at all. However, this is not exclusively a bad thing. Take hackers and trolls and cheaters, for example. Most people would not be willing to pay a second time for a game if they were banned from it for cheating or exploiting the game in some way. Although mostly this depends on the price point. For a game like Overwatch, which costs $40 US, I personally would not be willing to pay another $40 for another copy of the game. But in a free-to-play environment like Battlefield Heroes was, hackers ran rampant, and if they were ever banned, they could just immediately make a new account and just jump back into the game and start doing what they were. Having a pay-to-play model doesn't completely mitigate this problem, but it does act as a sort of secondary wall that heightens the consequence for being punished for acts of cheating. With a pay-to-play model, the developer wouldn't have to push players so hard to pay for things like cosmetic items because the player would already have made an initial purchase, directly contributing to the developer's server maintenance and general sustainability for the game. Whereas in a free-to-play model, no player is required to pay for anything, and for those that do, run the risk of losing everything that they've paid for if the game is not sustainable enough. For a free-to-play game, the most widely accepted payment model is for in-game items that affect strictly cosmetics and offer no gameplay changes. In a game like League of Legends, skins offer completely cosmetic changes to players in-game, but change no gameplay aspects, meaning there's no downside to other players for people owning skins. This method is extremely successful and, in my opinion, the proper way to run a free-to-play model. Renegade Line is already projected to have this model, but could it be better to pay once for the game and then unlock cosmetic items through progression? Using Overwatch as another example, once you pay for the game, you start progressing through the levels, and each level that you surpass, you gain a loot box. Opening these loot boxes gives you several cosmetic items, and in theory, this gives each and every player an equal chance at obtaining a cosmetic item, thus eliminating the need to pay for cosmetic items. However, the option is still there at the discretion of the player to be able to buy more loot boxes if they wish to unlock more cosmetics, in turn contributing more income towards the game. And while I'm not a fan of paying for loot boxes themselves, I don't mind them being in-game if they're available for players who choose not to pay for them. Like in the case of Counter-Strike, they have cases in the game, but they cost about $2 to open just one, which is ridiculously expensive for just an in-game item that is completely worthless. League of Legends just recently introduced this model with their Hextech crafting system, allowing players to obtain crates and open them for free just by playing the game, which I applaud and think is a great design choice. But again, the option is still there for players to be able to buy the crates if they so choose. But in their free-to-play environment where the only purchasable items with their funds or riot points are cosmetics, it's almost entirely pointless to buy these crates when you can go to the store and get exactly what you want for a certain price. The only gimmick that they have is that they offer skins that might not be available in the store anymore. So in my opinion, their only real use is for players who choose not to pay for cosmetics. Therefore, I believe this method works much better in a pay-to-play environment where players are offered crates for free to open, but are also offered the ability to purchase them at their discretion. Crates themselves don't seem to hold their own as their own payment model, but offer a lot of profitability when you offer strictly cosmetic items in them. So these crates couple very well with pay-to-play models. It's been a heated discussion as to whether or not pay to play is better than free to play or vice versa, and it's up to developers to decide whether or not their game is going to be free to play or pay to play, and everyone has their own opinion, it seems. I'm not sure which is exactly the best model to go with, though I'm kind of leaning towards pay to play, but I'd love to hear your opinions on it. So if you would like to, leave your comments on this video or in the thread that I plan to post this on, and I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching.